So get this, they're doing it. They're doing the vaccine passport.
Finally.
So Tedros announces the WHO will adopt the European Union's digital COVID vaccine pass system to create the Global Digital Health Certification Network. So compliant subjects can move around as safely as possible. When they're telling you it's for your safety, it's for your control. During present and future health threats. So here it comes. Here it comes. Ready?
While the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic is now over, investments in digital infrastructure remain an important resource for health systems and for economies and societies.
So this is important, this digital thing. I was watching Dr. John Campbell. He thought it was important to make sure people had clean water. He thought it was important to make sure people had access to health care. He thought it was important to make sure... No, he said it's most important that we get everybody on a digital passport vaccine system. That's what he just said. Here we go. I'll play it for you again. Oh, come on.
While the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic is now over, investments in digital infrastructure remain an important resource for health systems and for economies and societies at large.
It's for everything.
Like many countries, the European Union made significant investments in COVID-19 certificates to help people move around as safely as possible during the...
It's to help people move around safely, Kurt.
Yeah, right.
This digital overlord, complete tracking system, surveillance.
Well, it would have helped, because since the vaccine does stop the virus, that totally is helpful. Especially now that we know it's, I guess, well, I'm supposed to say it's better than we thought. I don't know how I'm supposed to say this, but...
pandemic. The European Union's certification system was used by all 27 EU member states and more than 50 other countries.
And was a failure.
Building on the success of the EU system,
and by the way, it was a huge failure. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it was a huge failure. What was the point of it? Wasn't the point of it to stop the virus from spreading? If that was the point of it, it was a huge failure. Because everybody got COVID.
Well, people are going to start getting viruses. We need a system in place so we can switch everybody's life on and off.
Yes.
From one point.
So they were restricting people's travel, and we now know that the lockdowns were not only failure, but they were injurious. They were the thing that caused the problem. So these people are huge failures. The WHO's handling of COVID was a huge failure. The things they recommended actually hurt people. Those lockdowns were horrible. And then they did the vaccine passport thing. What did that do? What did it accomplish except tracking people? Did it stop the spread of the virus? Did it stop COVID? Everybody got it. So what was the point of all that? And by the way, if you got a vaccine, that's supposed to protect you. What do you care if someone else has it? This was all these, none of this stuff ever made sense, and all of it's a lie. And these guys are the most, and they're not incompetent. They're criminals. This guy is working for Bill Gates. They're telling you they're doing it for your safety, and there's another purpose. You don't think the bankers want this? Of course they do. Bill Gates, who runs the WHO, because he's the biggest donor, and they already admit they do what their donors want them to do, just like politicians. Okay.
WHO is proud today to launch the Global Digital Health Certification Network.
There it is, the Global Digital Health.
So thank you so much to the European Union for the excellent certification system that you have transferred to us.
That did what?
Chance to build on it.
All it did was surveil people. What was the positive health outcome from that? European digital what was it? And that you are now adopting worldwide. And it's even worse. By the way, this you might think like, well, I just won't follow it. Well, I got news for you coming up. Hold on.
WHO will begin operations of the network today.
So by the way, this means you can't travel unless the WHO says you can. Unless you get all the shots they say you have to get. Well, let's remember, there's still places in this country that are saying you have to get boosters to go to college. You have to get, still people are making you get boosters to go work on a TV set. They're still making you get your vaccine, even though two of the top people at the FDA's vaccine department resigned over the boosters. They don't tell you that. So this has got, I'm going to go out on a limb and, well, I'll say a lot of people say, how about this? A lot of people say this doesn't have anything to do with health.
With the existing COVID-19 certificate as a global public good. Soon after, we will expand this infrastructure.
Global public good. And then they're going to expand this infrastructure so they can control everybody in the world.
By incorporating other use, such as a digitized international certificate of vaccination, routine immunization cards, and international patient summaries.
Did you hear that last one?
Routine.
International patient summaries. So now the WHO is going to have my medical history on some kind of vaccine passport. My entire
Finally.
what? Some unelected, billionaire-funded, fucking
Stakeholder capitalism.
organization. Yep. Here we go. This is your private-public partnership, Kurt. Okay, so Dr. David says, today the WHO director announced the adoption of global health passports for limiting international travel for the unvaccinated. And they get to decide how many vaccines you need. Separately, this week, North Korea joined the WHO's executive board. North Korea joined the WHO's executive board. Certainly just another coincidence. Do you see it now? The need to lock the world down, they needed to lock the world down, force trauma onto every citizen, ensure people lost everything, so ensure the pain of lockdowns would increase the desire to do whatever they tell you, if you just want it to stop. So install pain, offer relief from pain equals jab passports that create big money. Papers, please. We can't have you buying groceries unless you are at the same level of risk for mild coincidence as everyone else.
Mild coincidence.
We really need to get rid of shadowy organizations like the WHO since it failed miserably during the COVID pandemic to serve humanity. Would you agree? It failed miserably. Sweden did nothing, and they have better outcomes. The United States did everything the WHO said, and we had the worst outcomes in the world. And so I love this. You've seen this maybe on social media. It says if you allow the government to break the law during an emergency, they will create emergencies to break the law.
You put war in there too.
And a war is an emergency. And they can just say we're at war with terrorism. That's another emergency. And they've done that. And so now we're at perpetual emergency against terrorism, which is why the government can spy on you, as Edward Snowden revealed, why you don't have any rights that you thought you did. We live in a complete surveillance state.
First we had to fight Islamic terror. Now the deepest threat of all, nerds who can't get laid. Like
The worst.
that's the number one
That's
thing
it.
to look out for. Yeah, incel violence. You know about incel violence?
I do. The push for vaccine passports, or this is from the Last American Vagabond, the push for vaccine passports or digital identities, it's not coming from the people. There is no genuine call for these policies rising up from the grassroots. It's coming from various organizations, such as the Better Identity Coalition, with ties to cybersecurity spooks, with connections to the national security state, U.S. and Israeli intelligence, banks, and corporations. That's where this is coming from. Those people give money to the WHO, and then they say they're doing all this for your safety. Okay, it's all about controlling you. These schemes are also being sold to the people of the world under the guise of building a more equitable, sustainable, and just world. The United Nations is promoting the idea that digital identity is a human right in an effort to persuade the global south and developing nations to participate. This is a scam.
Oh, this is why they were pushing that. Remember the new list of human rights had access to digital and internet access as a human right, which it's not. That was to be able to start tracking these people.
Yes. In fact, in June 2022, Kurt, New York University's School of Law issued a 100-page report detailing the growing dangers of the reliance on digital identity around the world. The report, titled Paving a Digital Road to Hell, examines the role of the World Bank and other international networks which have been promoting the use of digital ID in recent years. The report notes that the World Bank has been energetically promoting biometric and other digital ID systems that are increasingly linked to large-scale human rights violations.
Oh boy, when they came out with that, it's a human right that these people can't afford to get on the internet. And
Yep.
not,
You
I
knew
took
something
it as-
nefarious was afoot.
I was like, well, that's not a human right. Like, I didn't realize that's before I knew about what they do with your data. That they all just steal. It's like oil, basically, that they steal from you.
Yes.
So I didn't know they're just to harvest them. Didn't occur to me at the time until just now. Here it is.
The researchers warned that digital identity schemes promoted in the name of development and inclusion might be achieving neither. Despite ostensible good intentions on the part of some promoting these systems, they may well be paving a digital road to hell. And so just so you know, the WHO, there's an agreement that's going to give the WHO the authority to implement this. The agreement has already been signed on to by the United States. What they have to do is reject it. So 12 months ago, they signed this agreement that gives the WHO all this power to make they can restrict your travel, they can lock you down, they can do whatever they dictate, you have to do it because they have the power of coercion of the law, meaning that the United States government can make you do whatever the WHO said. They already did it, but now they put it in law. They put it in their charter that the United States signed on to. And the United States, well, here, I'll show you. Member states would be obliged to follow the agency's instructions when responding to pandemics, including by introducing vaccine passports, border closures, and quarantine measures under a draft. So that's what's happening. Member states, okay. The treaty they first did this WHO treaty. This is supposed to help you get data and information. That was the big idea. But now they're using it, of course, totally nefarious to track you and violate your civil rights. But among 300 proposed amendments to the international health regulations are changes to make the WHO advice binding and introduce a new requirement for the countries to recognize it as the global authority on public health measures. The plan would require member countries to recognize the WHO as the guidance and coordinating authority of international public health response and undertake to follow the WHO's recommendations in their international. So the WHO is going to dictate to you what to do whenever they decide, hey, there's a pandemic, we get to lock you down again. Hey, there's a pandemic, you got to take these vaccines, and you have to get this being passport, and we have to have your complete medical history, and it's all got to be on your digital ID passport. It also has your banking, I'm sure, on it, and all that, and you can't travel without it. And who's doing this? An unelected body called the WHO, which is really just a mouthpiece for Bill Gates, who is an evil motherfucker. Unelected, running your life completely. That's what this is. Now, I don't know how much of this, because they say YouTube, I'm not allowed to say that what the WHO says isn't right. So everything the WHO says is great.
They got 5 months before you have to say they're right.
We got 6 months before we have to say.
There's 6 months before you can't say this about WHO.
So, I hope people are waking up to what's going on. We'll see. But they're clamping down extra hard on that. I wonder if they'll take this video down. We'll see. We'll see. I wonder if I'm allowed to talk. Am I allowed to criticize the WHO? I don't even know.
Well, that's normal.
I know, right?
That's normal. Maybe to go kill a bunch of Muslims because they didn't want to let people talk. Remember that?
Remember that?
They're going to try to tell us we can't say anything about the Quran. You can't say anything about the WHO or pharmaceuticals. You can't talk ill of.
You can't speak
like
ill
they're
of.
the prophet, peace be upon him.
That's right. People were upset about Muslims.
We turned into the ultimate radical
Oh my
blasphemy
God.
culture.
RFK Jr. is ripping it up. He's telling the truth about foreign policy. Here he describes accurately how the U.S. government has used Ukraine for a proxy war. You ready? Here we go.
Philosopher said that the U.S. strategy should be to suck Russia into a series of wars in little countries where we can then exhaust them. Lloyd Austin, who is the President Biden's defense secretary, in April 2022 said our purpose for being in the Ukraine is to degrade the Russian army, to exhaust it, and degrade its capacity to fight anywhere in the world. Well, that is the opposite of a humanitarian mission. That is a war of attrition, and that's what it's turned out to be. We have now turned Ukraine into an abattoir that has devoured 350,000 young Ukrainians. They are lying about how many people have died. They're concealing it from us. They're concealing it from the Pentagon's concealing it from the American people. Ukraine is concealing it from them people, but 350,000 people. Russians are killing Ukrainians at a ratio of 7 to 1. And we have turned that poor little nation into, just a killing field for these idealistic young kids. And in order to advance a geopolitical agenda that, has nothing to do with Ukraine.
Well, show me another candidate for office that's talking like that about the Ukraine war, telling the truth about exactly what our foreign policy is and how we've been trying to suck Russia into a series of wars over smaller countries to bleed them dry. Exactly what he said. It's a war of attrition. These aren't humanitarian wars. Of course they're not. I swear to God, I can't get over how fucking stupid comedians are I talk to. They really think that we're there fighting Putin and bad people and we're the good guys. It's mind-blowing. After the last 20 years, you can look around and go, you really think we're the good guys?
We had the best intentions in all of that stuff, Jimmy.
By the way, he called it an abattoir. Could you catch that word? That's a French word. It means something ugly, like a bidet or Gerard Depardieu. Come on. He pimps foie gras. Oh yeah. Anyway. Ignorance. By the way, I've heard foie gras. But historical events that led to the start of the Ukraine conflict. U.S. and NATO are completely responsible for the war in Ukraine. The conflict in Ukraine has exposed the double standards of the West. Well said. But don't try to bring up history, pal. What are you doing bringing up history unless you want to mention that World War II justified permanent U.S. empire? But if you do that, don't mention that Russia was on our side and helped, or that Ukraine fought with Hitler.
Yeah, keep that down.
Don't bring that up. There's more.
About what they want. They want NATO to make a pledge to not come into the Ukraine, which we should have done. We shouldn't have put NATO into 14 countries. We told the Russians when they dismantled the Soviet Union in 1991, and they moved 400,000 troops out of East Germany, and they allowed NATO to reunify Germany under NATO. And they said our condition for doing that, for this tremendous conciliation that we're making, is that you never move NATO to the east. And George Bush told them, we will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And in 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski laid out the plan, which has then happened, where we moved it not 1 inch, but 1,000 miles to the east, 14 nations, and then we put Aegis missile systems in Poland and Romania, which are nuclear capable. So they're a few minutes from Russia. They can decapitate the entire Russian leadership before, if we wanted to start a preemptive war.
So that was Brzezinski. That was Morning Mika Brzezinski's father.
Yeah.
From the Morning Joe show. He's the architect of this atrocity?
Right.
Does Morning Joe know about this?
I don't know.
Because I'm sure he would say something about this conflict of interest in the Morning Joe Ukraine reporting if only he knew.
Yeah, did they keep this from Morning Joe? That's what I want to know.
That's what
I want to know.
Here we go.
And that is inexcusable. I mean, we wouldn't live with that. My uncle did not live with that in 1962. We would have gone in. If they hadn't removed him from Cuba, we would have gone in.
Oh, God. There he goes, bringing up his family again. All the time with the Cuban this and that.
Well, listen, I don't want to hear anything about your family for 75 years. What don't you get? There'll be time enough to listen to that shit when we're all dead.
And then we overthrew the democratically elected government, Viktor Yanukovych, in 2014. We spent $5 billion. The CIA, through USAID and the National Endowment for Democracy, and $5 billion to violently overthrow that government, which was democratically elected. So we destroyed this democracy and put in our own government, which we now know the neocons in the White House, Victoria Nuland, selected 2 months before in a telephone. So we handpicked the new government before the coup. We put a new government in that immediately makes a civil war against the Russian population of Donbass, bans the Russian language, kills 14,000 of them, and then starts training with NATO. And there were a lot of provocations. It's not just me saying this. George Kennan, who is the architect of, the entire Cold War containment policy, said in 1998, the year after Brzezinski wrote that memo, he said, it is the greatest calamity ever to expand NATO to the east. He said, Russia lost the Cold War. The people who are running Russia are the ones who oppose the Cold War. We should be making friends with them. We shouldn't be pushing them into the hands of China.
Shouldn't be pushing them into the hands of China, which is exactly what they're doing. Again, they're doing every dumb, stupid thing. And look at that. Isn't it amazing? So there's only going to be one person telling the truth. Like, apparently, maybe Cornel West will also on Ukraine. We'll see. I haven't heard him talk about it.
All these people, they all think it's inevitable that we're going to have a war with China at some point.
Right?
That it's a foregone conclusion, which is like a way to... I remember Bill Maher saying how Christians believe the end of the world's coming and they try to make it happen and to grow up.
Yeah.
Never said that to the people come on his show that are literally going to make the world end for not religious reasons, just for oil, on purpose. But there's nobody who's like, oh, is there a scenario we don't have to ever have a war with China? Like, no, we're going to have to. We're going to have it out with them. There's only so much stuff. We need the rest of it.